Hello, I'm Roni, and welcome to Somnareth. Tonight, we leave the modern world behind. The noise, the schedules, and the demands of the day. Instead, you'll journey into the past, into a world of wooden longships, cold northern seas, and distant horizons. There is nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to do. Simply relax and let the story carry you. Tonight, you sail with Vikings across the North Sea. And now, our voyage begins. You walk slowly across the wooden dock. The planks creak softly beneath heavy wool boots. Cold northern air moves through the harbor. It smells of salt, pine tar, wet rope, and damp stone cooled by the night air. Ahead of you, the longship waits beside the fjord. Long, narrow, and beautifully carved from oak. Its dragon-headed prow rises silently above black water moving beneath the dock. Tiny lanterns sway in the wind. Their reflections tremble softly across the harbor. Around you, the crew prepares for tomorrow's voyage across the North Sea. Not loudly, not hurriedly. The Vikings move with the calm rhythm of people who have done this many times before. One man pulls thick rope slowly through rough, weathered hands. The fibers groan softly beneath the strain. Another checks barrels packed with dried cod and smoked herring for the long journey ahead. Most Viking voyages carried practical foods that survive cold sea travel well. Dried fish, barley bread, oats, onions, fermented dairy, and weak ale safer to drink than spoiled water aboard the ship. Nearby, a woman wraps heavy wool blankets carefully inside waxed leather coverings to protect them from sea spray and rain. You hear the quiet knock of wood against wood farther down the dock. Then silence again. Beyond the harbor, dark mountains rise beside the fjord. Snow rests across their distant peaks beneath drifting clouds. You step closer to the ship. Your hand brushes slowly across the smooth, overlapping oak planks. The wood feels cool beneath your fingertips. Strong, steady. Viking shipbuilders design their longships to flex gently with rough waves instead of breaking against them. The overlapping wooden planks allow the hull to bend with the sea itself. That design carried Viking sailors astonishing distances. From Norway to England, through the rivers of Eastern Europe, and even westward toward North America, centuries before Columbus. Below you, black water laps softly against the dock posts. You listen to the slow creaking of rope tied against the mast. A lantern flame flickers nearby. Its warm glow dances across iron rivets pressed deep into the dark wood. Somewhere behind you, a horse shifts quietly within the sleeping village. Then all becomes still once more. Above the fjord, snow clouds drift slowly across the stars. And beneath them, the longship waits patiently for the coming voyage. Morning arrives slowly across the fjord, not with alarms, but with cold blue light, spreading quietly over black water. The harbor is still half asleep. Frost clings to the grass beyond the dock. Thin ice glitters softly between stones near the shoreline. Above you, gulls circle somewhere within the pale morning mist. Their distant cries drift across the cold air. You pull your wool cloak tighter around yourself. The fabric smells faintly of smoke from last night's fires. Ahead of you, the longship rocks gently beside the dock. Wood creaks softly beneath the movement of the tide. Tiny beads of seawater cling to the dark oak hull. Several members of the crew move quietly through the morning fog. No one speaks very loudly before departure. The sea feels too large for unnecessary noise. One man checks the thick wool sail folded carefully beside the mast. Viking sails were woven from sheep's wool and often coated with animal fat or tar to help resist rain and sea spray. Even now, you can smell the sharp scent of pine tar drifting from the ship. Nearby, another crewman secures wooden barrels tightly with rope. Long voyages required careful preparation. A loose barrel during rough weather could become dangerous once the sea began throwing the ship against heavy waves. You hear the soft knock of wood against wood, then only wind again. A woman kneels beside a small iron pot, suspended carefully above the coals. Steam rises slowly into the cold air. You are handed a warm bowl of oat porridge, sweetened lightly with honey. The heat spreads into your hands immediately. You lift the wooden spoon slowly. The porridge is thick, earthy, and comforting against the sharp northern cold. Nearby, dried apples simmer quietly inside the pot. Their faint sweetness drifts through the harbor mist. Food aboard ship was practical above all else. Anything carried across the northern seas needed to survive cold weather, salt air, and long weeks away from shore. Barrels were packed carefully with supplies meant to last through uncertain journeys. Weak ale was often carried aboard as well, because fresh water stored inside wooden casks could quickly become stale after many days at sea. The sky slowly brightens overhead. Gray clouds drift above the mountains, surrounding the fjord. Snow rests quietly across the distant peaks. You carefully step onto the longship. The deck shifts gently beneath your boots. The wood feels damp from the morning air. Cold rope brushes against your hand as you steady yourself beside the mast. Around you, the crew settles into familiar positions without hurry. These voyages demanded patience more than speed. A rushed sailor up on cold northern water rarely remained one for long. The harbor grows quieter now. Even the gulls seem farther away. Then slowly, the ropes securing the ship are loosened from the dock. One by one, the longship drifts gently backward into dark water. You hear the low groaning sound of the hull moving against the tide. Then the oars lower together. Smooth, polished wood disappears beneath the sea. Splash, pull, splash, pull. The rhythm begins slowly, almost like breathing. Mist moves across the surface of the fjord, while the village behind you slowly fades into pale morning fog. Tiny lantern lights disappear one by one along the distant shoreline. Ahead, only sea. Days aboard a Viking ship are quieter than most people imagine. Much of the voyage passes in silence. Only sea, wind, and the slow creaking of the ship moving through cold water. The longship rises gently upon the waves, then settles again. Above you, the heavy wool sail shifts softly in the northern wind. You hear rope pulled tight against the mast. Low wooden groans move through the hull beneath your feet. Viking sails were woven from sheep's wool rather than linen. The thick fabric handled cold weather well, though sea spray and rain often made it heavy during long journeys. Some cells required wool from entire farming communities to complete. Even now, you can smell faint pine tar brushed carefully into the ship's wood to protect it from seawater. Gray clouds drift slowly overhead. Their shadows move quietly across the dark ocean. You sit near the center of the ship beside stacked barrels wrapped tightly with rope. The deck rocks gently beneath you, not violently, almost rhythmically. Nearby, one man repairs a fishing net stretched across the wood. Bone needles pass slowly between worn cords damaged by salt water and rough weather. His hands move patiently, without hurry. Farther down the ship, another crewman sharpens an axe beside the railing. The sound blends softly with waves against the hull. Most Viking axes aboard ship served practical purposes as much as battle. They cut firewood, split timber, prepared fish, and repaired damaged boards during long voyages. The sharpened blade catches pale gray light before turning dark again beneath the clouds. Cold wind brushes across your face. You pull your wool cloak tighter around yourself. The fabric feels damp with sea mist. Salt gathers faintly along the woven edges. Two men sit quietly beside a carved wooden game board balanced between them. Small game pieces click softly against the wood. Games helped pass long stretches of quiet weather when the sea remained calm. The ocean stretches endlessly around the ship now. No land remains visible. Only water, clouds, wind, and the steady rhythm of the longship carrying you farther westward through the cold northern sea. Rise and fall, rise and fall. After many days aboard the ship, the movement begins to feel almost like breathing itself. As evening settles across the North Sea, the sky turns silver and blue. The last pale light lingers softly along the horizon, while dark water rolls beneath the ship. Cold wind moves steadily through the sail overhead. The longship creaks quietly with each passing wave. Nearby, a small cooking fire burns carefully inside a wooden box filled with sand near the center of the ship. Open flames aboard Viking ships had to be controlled carefully. A single overturned ember upon dry wood could become disastrous far from shore. Thin smoke drifts upward in the cold evening air. Dried fish soften slowly inside warm broth, while barley thickens within a black iron pot, suspended carefully above the coals. You smell onions, wood smoke, salt water, and damp wool cloaks drying slowly beside the fire. The warmth reaches your hands first as you step close to the fire. Then your face. A crewman tears apart dense barley bread before passing pieces quietly down the ship. Wooden bowls move from hand to hand without much conversation. Nobody speaks very loudly at sea after dark. The ocean itself seems to encourage silence. You sit near the mast while the ship rises gently beneath you. Rise and fall. Rise and fall. The movement has become familiar now, almost comforting. Most Viking ships carried No permanent sleeping quarters below deck. During long voyages, the crew often slept beneath wool cloaks or animal furs directly upon the open ship itself. Even now, bundled blankets and rolled hides rest beside stacked barrels near the stern. A sailor beside you drinks slowly from a wooden cup before staring quietly into the darkening sea. Salt gathers faintly in his beard from dried sea mist. Farther down the ship, someone adjusts a lantern hanging beside the mast. Its warm glow sways softly across wet wood and coiled rope. The light catches tiny droplets of seawater still clinging to the deck. Above you, the first stars begin appearing, one by one, through gaps in the clouds. Vikings often navigated using the sun during daylight, but experienced sailors also watched the stars, currents, birds, and the color of the sea itself to help guide along long voyages across unfamiliar waters. The northern sky slowly darkens overhead. Somewhere beyond the edge of the ship, waves move endlessly through the cold night sea. You pull your cloak tighter around yourself. The wool smells faintly of smoke from the cooking fire. Nearby, the iron pot continues simmering softly while the lantern swings gently beside the mast. And around you, the long ship drifts steadily onward through the darkening North Sea. Night deepens across the North Sea. The last traces of blue fade slowly from the horizon until only darkness and starlight remain above the ship. Cold air drifts steadily across the deck. The sea moves quietly beneath the hull. The longship glides steadily through the dark water beneath the stars. Most of the crew now rests beneath thick wool cloaks and animal furs spread carefully across the wooden deck. Shapes wrapped in dark blankets lie quietly beside barrels, rope bundles, and stacked supplies. Some sailors sleep with one arm tucked beneath their heads. Others rest beside shields hanging along the rails of the ship. You settle deeper beneath your own heavy wool cloak. The rough, woven fabric presses warmly around your shoulders as the cold night air drifts over the deck above you. Its fibers smell faintly of salt, smoke from old campfires, and seawater carried across many long days of travel. You wonder how much farther remains before land appears again. Perhaps tomorrow the crew will spot distant cliffs rising through the morning fog. Perhaps another fishing boat will pass somewhere along the horizon. Or perhaps there will be nothing at all but open gray water stretching endlessly beneath the clouds. Somewhere nearby, a sailor mutters softly in his sleep before falling quiet again. You imagine what the men aboard this ship might already be thinking about as they rest. Warm food waiting at the next settlement, dry ground beneath their feet, news from home, trade goods safely delivered. For now, though, there's only the steady movement of the sea beneath you, and the strange comfort of knowing the ship continues carrying everyone forward through the darkness together. Viking wool was thick and oily compared to modern cloth. The natural lanolin within the fibers helped resist cold rain and sea mist during long journeys across northern waters. Even now, tiny droplets of moisture cling to the surface of the fabric above you. Nearby, someone breathes slowly in his sleep. Another shifts softly beneath a fur blanket before becoming still once more. Nobody speaks now, Only the sea continues speaking quietly around the ship. Water brushes against the hull in slow, steady rhythms. The mast creaks overhead. Rope pulls gently in the wind. Far above, the sail shifts softly against the night sky. Viking crews often slept closely together aboard ships for warmth during cold voyages. Body heat mattered greatly upon open northern seas, where freezing winds could arrive without warning. Even in summer, the nights across the North Sea could become painfully cold. But beneath your blankets now, you feel strangely safe. Near the stern, a sailor has left a small oil lamp burning low beside a stack of supplies. Its faint amber glow flickers softly across damp planks darkened by seawater. Most of the fire has faded into glowing embers within the sand-filled box near the center of the ship. Thin smoke drifts quietly upward before disappearing into darkness. You stare upward toward the sky beyond the sail overhead. Endless stars shimmer across the northern heavens. Without city lights, the sky feels impossibly infinite. Some Viking sailors believed certain stars offered protection during long journeys at sea. Others watched constellations simply because there was little else to see during endless nights upon open water. A cold breeze brushes lightly across your face before fading once more. The ship continues onward through the darkness, steady, patient, unhurried. Somewhere beyond the edge of the longship, black waves roll endlessly beneath a moonlit sky. And slowly, wrapped in warmth and drifting ocean sounds, you begin feeling the weight of sleep settling softly over you as the sea carries the ship farther into the silent northern night. Sometime after midnight, the weather changes. At first, it is only the wind, a slow, restless movement passing across the surface of the sea. The sail above shifts harder against the mast. Ropes creak softly in the darkness. And then comes the rain, light at first, cold droplets tapping quietly against wood and wool cloaks. You pull your blanket closer while the longship continues rising and falling beneath the dark water. Far above, clouds slowly swallow the stars. The moon disappears behind thickening gray skies. Rain begins falling more steadily now. Soft waves become rougher against the hull. Water splashes higher along the sides of the ship. Yet the crew does not panic. These sailors know storms well. A few men rise quietly from sleep and move toward the ropes without shouting or confusion. Experienced Viking crews relied heavily upon calm coordination during rough weather. Longships were built to flex with the sea rather than fight against it. Their overlapping wooden planks, called clinker-built construction, allowed the hull to bend slightly with powerful waves instead of breaking under pressure. Even now, you can feel the ship moving differently beneath you. Not rigid, not fragile, but alive somehow. The long ship bends gently with the rough water, while cold wind moves harder across the deck. Rainwater glistens across shields fastened along the sides of the ship. A sailor near the mast tightens rope with slow, practiced movements, while another checks the position of the sail overhead. the storm deepens. Wind whistles sharply through the rigging. Water crashes louder now against the hull. Somewhere beyond the darkness, thunder rolls faintly across the northern sea. Then, for just a moment, lightning flashes far beyond the clouds. The entire ocean appears silver blue beneath the sky. Wet ropes, dark waves, the carved dragon head rising above white water. Then darkness returns once more. For a while, there is only wind, water, darkness, and the deep groaning song of the ship itself. The mast creaks overhead. Wood strains softly beneath shifting waves. The sea feels endless tonight. A sailor beside you mutters quietly beneath his breath before tightening his cloak against the rain. No one wastes movement. Everything aboard the ship feels careful now, measured, steady. Viking sailors often carried little protection from storms beyond experience, strong ships, and knowledge passed through generations of seafaring. There were no compasses aboard most Viking voyages. No lanterns visible beyond the storm. Only memory, currents, wind, and instinct learned from years upon dangerous northern waters. Rain drips steadily from the edge of the sail overhead. Cold spray touches your face as another wave rolls alongside the ship. Yet beneath the fearsome sound of the storm, there is something strangely calming about the rhythm. The rise of the waves, the steady movements of the crew, the endless sound of rain against wood. Gradually, almost without noticing, the wind begins weakening. Thunder grows more distant. Rain softens against the deck once more. The sea still rolls beneath the ship, but with less force now. Clouds slowly begin breaking apart overhead. Far above, a few stars quietly return between drifting patches of darkness. One sailor exhales slowly before settling back beneath his blanket near the stern. Another squeezes water from his cloak before sitting quietly beside the mast. The storm continues moving eastward across the sea. Behind it, the northern night grows calm once more. Rain becomes only a faint whisper against the water. The ship steadies. The waves soften. And slowly, beneath the returning stars, the longship continues onward through the cold, dark silence of the sleeping sea. Morning arrives, hidden beneath thick gray fog. Sea and sky blend together until the world feels endless and pale. The horizon disappears completely. There is no edge between water and air now. Only drifting whiteness surrounding the ship on every side. The long ship moves slowly through the fog while cold moisture gathers across the wooden deck. Tiny droplets cling to rope. Barrels glisten softly beside the mast. Even the shields lining the rails appear darkened by damp sea air. Somewhere nearby, water laps quietly against the hull. The sound feels strangely close within the fog. Several sailors wake slowly beneath their blankets before moving carefully across the ship. Nobody speaks loudly this morning. A heavy mist seems to swallow every sound. One man kneels near the edge of the ship, lowering a fishing line into the dark water below. Another follows beside him. The lines disappear silently beneath the pale surface. Fishing during voyages helps supplement food supplies during long journeys across northern waters. Fresh fish could be cooked immediately or preserved later using salt or drying methods once ashore. The ship continues drifting forward through the gray, cold silence. Then suddenly, a sailor pulls sharply upward on the line. Water splashes softly against the side of the hull. A shining cod emerges, twisting above the deck. Its silver scales catch the weak morning light before fading once more into muted gray. The fish is placed quietly inside a wooden bucket beside the mast. No celebration follows, only calm routine. These sailors have done this many times before. Some Viking voyages lasted weeks, depending upon weather, currents, and destination. Ships often traveled not only for raiding, but for trade, exploration, settlement, and seasonal travel between distant coastal communities. Even now, bundles secured beneath waterproof coverings near the center of the ship carry valuable goods gathered from far northern lands. Furs, iron tools, amber, walrus ivory, carefully woven cloth. At their destination, some of these goods may be traded for silver, grain, wine, glass beads, or finely crafted metalwork from distant settlements farther south. You imagine what it might feel like when the ship finally reaches harbor again. Solid earth beneath your feet. Warm food beside dry firelight. Voices echoing inside crowded wooden halls. Perhaps traders already wait there even now, along the docks beneath the morning fog. Perhaps smoke already rises from cooking fires, hidden somewhere beyond the sea. A seabird cries somewhere within the mist overhead. Then another. You never see them. Only their distant voices echo softly across the water. The fog thickens briefly around the ship before slowly shifting once more. Everything feels slower here, even time itself. A sailor beside you wraps both hands around a wooden cup for warmth while staring quietly into the whiteness ahead. Another repairs part of a fishing net using careful, practiced movements. Bone needles were sometimes used aboard Viking ships for repairing sails, clothing, nets, and rope during long voyages. Nothing aboard the ship was wasted carelessly far from shore. The sea remains calm today. Only small rolling waves move beneath the hull now. The longship glides onward, almost silently. No stars, no coastline, no visible horizon. Only pale fog stretching endlessly across the northern sea. You pull your wool cloak tighter around yourself against the cold, damp air. Nearby, the freshly caught cod rests quietly inside a wooden bucket, while thin fog curls softly across the deck. The sailors continue their work in near silence, patient, unhurried, as though the sea itself has slowed the world around you. And somewhere beyond the endless gray mist ahead, the voyage continues carrying the longship steadily toward distant shores hidden beyond the fog. By afternoon, the fog finally begins lifting. At first, only faint brightness appears somewhere beyond the clouds. Then slowly, pale sunlight glows across the sea once more. The endless gray mist thins around the ship in drifting ribbons, while cold northern light spreads gently across the water. For the first time in many hours, you can see the horizon again. The longship glides steadily forward beneath the clearing sky. Water drips quietly from rope and shields, still damp from the earlier fog. A few sailors sit silently along the deck, repairing fishing lines or tightening knots worn loose by weather and sea spray. Others simply rest while staring toward the widening distance ahead. The ocean feels calmer now, almost silver beneath the pale afternoon light. Nearby, a sailor carefully removes a strange crystal from a small leather pouch tied beneath his cloak. He holds it carefully toward the sky, turning it slowly within the light. Some historians believe Vikings may have used special crystals called sunstones to help locate the hidden position of the sun during cloudy weather. Certain crystals, possibly Iceland spar, can separate light in unusual ways that may help reveal sunlight even through heavy cloud cover. No one aboard the ship speaks while the sailor studies the crystal. Only the soft movement of water surrounds the deck. At last, the sailor lowers the stone and quietly gestures toward the western horizon. Another sailor adjusts the steering oar near the stern. The longship shifts gently upon the sea. Soon, the ship resumes its course once more toward distant western shores, hidden beyond the fading mist. Above you, the heavy wool sail fills slowly with cold ocean wind. The fabric pulls softly against the ropes overhead. Nearby, a sailor carefully smooths seawater from the thick woven sail while checking the wooden yard above for cracks or strain from the long crossing. Salt stiffens the fabric after many days at sea. Every rope, every knot, every beam of wood aboard the ship must be watched carefully during a voyage across northern waters. Nearby, one sailor carefully works a bone needle through a torn section near the edge of the sail, while another twists fresh rope fibers together between rough, weathered hands. Nothing aboard the ship is wasted. Everything matters upon the sea. The sunlight grows warmer now as clouds continue drifting apart overhead. Far ahead, something dark slowly appears along the horizon. Land. At first, only faint shapes. Then gradually, steep green hills emerge beside dark rocky cliffs rising from the sea. A few seabirds wheel overhead while distant waves break softly against hidden shores somewhere beyond sight. The sailors become quieter now. more attentive. One man secures loose cargo near the center of the ship, while another brushes dried salt from his cloak. You imagine what waits beyond those distant shores. Wooden docks, wet with seawater. Smoke rising from cooking fires. The smell of pine forests and wet earth after so many days surrounded only by salt air. Perhaps traders already gather there now, beside crowded market stalls. Perhaps silver coins exchange hands beneath open awnings while fishermen unload fresh catches near the harbor. Viking trade routes eventually stretched across enormous distances, reaching parts of Ireland, England, France, Byzantium, and even far inland rivers of Eastern Europe. Yet, aboard the ship now, the world feels very small. Only wood, wind, water, and the slow, steady rhythm carrying everyone toward shore. The coastline grows clearer with every passing moment. You can now see narrow beaches tucked between rocky cliffs where white waves curl softly against the land. Thin smoke rises somewhere among distant trees. Signs of settlement, signs of warmth, signs of rest. The longship moves steadily onward through calm rolling water beneath a pale evening sky. No storms remain now. Only soft wind filling the sail overhead. A sailor near the bow closes his eyes briefly while breathing the scent of pine drifting faintly across the sea. Another quietly hums beneath his breath while coiling rope beside the mast. The voyage is nearly over. And somehow, after so many nights surrounded by darkness, rain, fog, and endless water, the sight of land feels both strange and comforting at once. The ship glides slowly toward the harbor as evening light settles softly across the northern coast. Water laps gently against the hull. Gulls cry somewhere overhead. The sail loosens slightly as the wind begins calming near shore. You pull your cloak tighter around yourself while watching the coastline drift closer through the fading golden light. And slowly, carried safely across the cold northern sea, the longship finally arrives beside the quiet distant shores, waiting beyond the voyage.